Hi there, and welcome to this Wheel and Anchor webinar covering our trip on the Upper Mekong, covering the countries of Laos and Cambodia. This is a very special trip because we've chartered this wonderful vessel, a relatively small ship that is able to navigate the shallow waters of the Upper Mekong where most river cruise ships can't go. So it's particularly special. It is dedicated just for us, and this trip will start in Vientiane, in the capital of Laos, going through some beautiful villages, charming scenery, mountainous countryside of Laos, before we then continue along the stretch of the river that covers the border between Thailand and Laos. And then we'll end up with some amazing days in the northern part of Thailand. If you are a regular viewer of our webinars, you can jump the next section, our introduction to Wheel and Anchor, by scrolling down below the description. You'll find the chapters, and you can jump forward to the map of our itinerary and the detailed day-by-day overview. If you're new to Wheel and Anchor, let me just say a few words about who we are. First of all, we're a community of like-minded Canadians who appreciate a different and a more authentic approach to travel. We welcome anyone who understands that most organized trips have become kind of like a canned experience, like a movie on replay. If you want to be herded around from one place to another and be on a hectic schedule every minute of the day, then our trips probably aren't for you. But if you really appreciate the camaraderie that arises from traveling with other people just like you, and having freedom and having the encouragement from us to go off and explore on your own time, then you've definitely come to the right place. All that being said, we have a couple of objectives for everyone who's part of our community and comes on our trips. And specifically, it's to be well traveled and well connected. And what do we say? What do we mean when we say well traveled? Because I'm not just talking about ticking off boxes on a bucket list, which is not to say that there's anything wrong with having a bucket list. We all have them, all travelers have them in some sense or another. But we're talking about the kind of travel that keeps your curiosity and your sense of adventure alive, talking about taking part in experiences that change your perspective on how you see the world by diving into local culture a little bit deeper, which might be nothing other than striking up a conversation with somebody that you meet at a cafe, or maybe a staff member at a museum or a gallery that you might visit. You have the opportunity to have those kind of aha moments that give you a bit of a deeper understanding of what's really going on in the place that you're visiting. We all have someone we know who we consider to be well traveled. There's often a certain wisdom about that person, like almost like there's something that they know that you don't. That's what we mean by being well traveled. And then, as far as being well connected, well, ultimately it boils down to making friends that you'll actually want to stay in touch with, or at the very least go traveling with once again. By having a crew of fellow travel enthusiasts, it means you'll always have someone to talk about travel with, because let's face it, that creates a real and meaningful connection. There's Given that there's always a memory or a story to share. And by being well connected, we also mean having the time to actually talk to people in the places that we visit. And I don't just mean the tour guide or your host. Traveling with Wheel and Anchor affords you the ability to connect with not only with your fellow travelers, but with the people who live and work in the towns and villages that we visit along the way. As you can imagine, there's a lot of work involved in delivering on this promise, and we have a great team of people here at Wheel and Anchor. And so, just by way of introduction, my name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I curate all of the programs that we offer here based on well over 30 years of experience in delivering programs to Canadians. But I won't talk about everybody that's on the team. The most important person for you to know is our lead trip specialist, Paula Sarnik. She is the one who, when you drop us an email, when you give us a call, she'll try to answer all the questions that you might have, and really make sure that either this or one of our other trips is the right one for you. Our plan today is quite simple. Maybe you're watching this webinar because you were reading our newsletter and you found out that this trip that we've been planning for a long time has been released, or a friend of yours referred you to our YouTube channel, or maybe you've stumbled across us through Facebook. Either way, something has drawn you into this notion of cruising the upper Mekong, this remote stretch of the river. So I am going to be your guide on this roughly 30-minute webinar that is going to take you on a day-by-day itinerary, exploring some of the highlights that we're going to see on this trip. As always, let me give you a little overview on the map of where we're going. So first of all, if you look at the inset map in the middle, you'll see the area that we're talking about. So we're talking about the northwestern side of Laos and the northern part of Thailand. And our trip will begin over in Vientiane. This is the capital of Laos, relatively easy city to fly into via various gateways. We'll spend a couple of nights here. We'll embark on our vessel and make our way upstream, up the Mekong River. So the Mekong River, just so you know, it actually flows downstream from Vientiane. It actually travels north and then goes back south and empties out in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. So this stretch, we go upriver from Vientiane, and the river obviously becomes narrow and narrow. It covers a stretch which forms the border to Thailand, and then it heads inland in Laos and makes its way through all these little villages, some of them like Luang Prabang, a famous UNESCO World Heritage Site I'll talk about in a minute, continuing all the way up to what's called the Golden Triangle. So this is the section of the river where it again forms the border with Thailand and then hits the point called Chiang Kong, which is the Golden Triangle being the point where Myanmar, or otherwise formerly known as Burma, Laos, and Thailand all meet. We're actually going to disembark before we reach that point. We're going to head then down to a lovely little resort from where we can explore the Golden Triangle. We'll continue to Chiang Rai, most famous for the White Temple, and then one more leg overland, ending our trip in Chiang Mai, arguably the cultural capital of Thailand. So let's now dive into our day-by-day itinerary, which will take us on a trip that consists of a total of 7 nights in hotels and 10 nights aboard our intimate river vessel. So we're going to start off in Vientiane. This, as I mentioned before, is the capital of Laos. It's kind of a laid-back little town. You've probably never heard of it before, but luckily it's fairly well connected. You can get there flying via Bangkok or Taiwan or Hong Kong. There's a number of different connection cities that allow you to fly into Vientiane. Once arriving into Vientiane, you'll find a charming little city. In fact, it's one that most travelers overlook. But it's a fascinating place that consists of a unique blend of sort of French colonial architecture. Of course, it was a French colony for a long time, Buddhist temples, and a general sort of laid-back atmosphere. When we arrive, we'll have, as we normally do, a pretty quiet day, allow you to rest up and relax after the long journey. Then we'll have a little icebreaker to let you know what is in store for you for the rest of this trip that begins the next day. On our second day, we'll dive into the rich history and culture of this capital city. First off, we'll visit Wat Si Muang, which is a temple that has a fascinating origin involving human sacrifice. It sounds a little bit grim, but it's kind of a testament to the complex history of the region. We'll also visit the Kopi Center, which provides prosthetic limbs to victims of unexploded ordnance, a kind of a sobering reminder of Laos' relatively recent history. But it's not all serious. We'll also see the Victory Monument. That was the picture in the previous slide, which was modeled after Paris's Arc de Triomphe, showcasing the city's French colonial influence. And above all, there'll be time to just sort of meander around, explore some of the markets. Laos is quite a bargain. In fact, Thai people often travel across the river, across the Mekong to Vientiane to do their shopping, kind of like cross-border shopping because of the great deals to be had. On our third day, we'll make a short transfer over to the village of Pak Lay, which is the mooring point for our ship that will be our home for the next 10 nights. Now, the RV Sabaidi Panda is the ship that is going to be our home for the next 10 nights. This is one of the vessels that's part of the Panda fleet that has vessels operating on the Mekong here, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, as well as in Myanmar, although given the troubles going on in Myanmar, they're actually not offering any cruises there. And that's where I originally know Pandau from many years of working together, and also on India. And of course, you may be aware that we have another program going on there. But this ship, which is a double decked vessel, like just like you see here, it's a smaller one. It has a shallow draft, and it's specifically designed to deal with the narrow and shallow Mekong River, particularly up in the gorges of Laos, where we're actually going to be moving through some fast water. There's 14 staterooms in total on board. They are all exactly the same, upper deck, lower deck. One of them obviously devoted to our host of the trip, which means that we'll probably end up with around 20 members joining us, plus or minus. One of the things I love about these vessels is that there is a great balance between outdoor space, indoor space. The staterooms themselves are a decent size, they're comfy, and there's a lot of room so you don't feel like you're bumping into people as you go around. You'll have, of course, all meals aboard the ship during the cruise, with the exception if we take you for some special treat on shore somewhere. But there is a delicious buffet breakfast and lunch served every day, and then a served three-course meal every evening. And you can dine, depending on the weather, depending on the conditions. There's maybe the opportunity to dine either outside or inside in the dining room. And what makes these voyages particularly special is, of course, the staff. They will primarily consist of folks from either Laos, or they could be from Thailand or Cambodia. But all in all, they come from a part of the world where hospitality is simply just as akin to who they are. So there's lovely treatment. They'll be greeting you, looking after you at every step of the way. And this is really what makes the Pandau difference. The staterooms themselves, well, as you can see here, they are really a comfy size. They all face out with a window onto the outer gangway. They've got all the amenities that you could expect. There's kimonos and slippers. There's obviously a safe in the room. There's unlimited mineral water that's provided. They're really comfy beds. And above all, the bathrooms, like the shower is big enough that you can sort of with easily bend over to pick up the soap as they were. That's always the test for a good size washroom on board a ship. There's laundry service available, and multi prong plugs. So although we still encourage our members to bring adapters with them on board the ship, you can just plug your stuff from home directly in. Lots of storage space. And of course, these are both air conditioned and heated. You won't need heating at this time of the year, but perfect climate control, making these really a very comfy experience. So today we are in for a real treat, because this is what river cruising is really all about. We're going to spend the day meandering up the mighty Mekong, passing through lush jungle and tiny villages that have existed along this river for centuries. These villages are actually the lifeblood of Laos, and they offer us a glimpse into the way of life that's remained largely unchanged for generations. I want you to picture this. You're standing on the deck of your cozy vessel, sipping a cool drink and watching as life unfolds along the riverbanks. You might see fishermen casting their nets, children splashing in the shallows, women washing clothes, or farmers tending to their crops. This isn't a show for tourists. This is, in fact, the everyday life on the Mekong. As the day progresses, we'll stop at a couple of these villages. We'll have the chance to stroll through and meet some of the locals and really get a sense of what life is like here. It's these moments and these connections that make travel meaningful. Let me tell you, there's something magical about watching the world go by from the deck of a riverboat. As Bobby Darin might say, we'll be rolling down the river. So grab a cocktail and find a comfy spot on deck, and let the gentle rim of the Mekong be your soundtrack for the day. After breakfast today, we're in for a fascinating day that showcases the blend of ancient traditions and modern development in Laos. Our first stop is going to be Ban Pak Bor, a Khmu village. The Khmu people are one of the indigenous groups in Laos, and they have a history that stretches back about 4,000 years. That's actually older than the pyramids. In Banpakbor, we'll see traditional houses made of woven bamboo, often on stilts to guard against flooding. It's kind of a way of life that has been passed down through generations. And let me tell you, it isn't a tourist village again. This is the real deal. All of the villages we're going to see. It's a community that just is going about its daily life as it has forever. Now, contrast that with our next stop, which is going to be the Xayaburi Dam. This is a massive hydroelectric project, which is a symbol of Laos's push towards modernization. We'll actually pass through the dam's locks, which is always a bit of an adventure, just like on any boat. It's a stark reminder of how quickly things are changing in this part of the world. And as we continue our journey upriver, we'll visit another village and then moor for the night in yet a third, each stop giving us a bit of a perspective on life along the Mekong. I promise you by the end of the day, you'll have already a much deeper understanding of both traditional and modern Laos. On this day, we're sort of trading in our river views for one of the most stunning natural wonders of Laos, the Kwangsi waterfalls. When I first took a look at this picture, I thought it almost looks like a painting or like AI or something. But if you can picture this series of falls which tumbles over limestone formations, creating pools of the most mesmerizing and beautiful turquoise water you've ever seen, it kind of makes you wonder if someone turned up the saturation or something like that. The best part, you can actually take a dip in the river if you feel like it. You have the ability to take a towel along from the ship. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, Gordon, I've seen waterfalls before, but Kwangsi is something really special. It's the kind of place that even the most jaded traveler can't help but be impressed by. Again, a great place for an Instagram shop. On our way back to the ship, we'll make a stop at a very cool buffalo dairy farm where we can learn about sustainable agriculture in Laos. And they're making a more and more a push for that all of the time. We can try some of the buffalo milk products, which are surprisingly delicious. We'll have lunch on board as we will every day and then sail on to Luang Prabang, which is considered to be by some the jewel of Indochina. And I think that the moniker is probably fair. We'll take a little walk around this UNESCO listed town with our guide. We'll check out the night market and then head back to our ship for dinner. But perhaps if we're lucky, maybe you can convince our chef to whip up some lab or some kauji for us to try. And if you're not sure what those are, you can Google them or just come along the trip. We get to spend a whole day and another night here in Luang Prabang, which allows us really to immerse ourselves in the culture of this city. After we have our breakfast on the ship, we'll be heading off to Ok Pop Talk. But before that, I wanted to say something about breakfast on the ship because what I love about Panda is that there will be obviously all of the conventional Western breakfast items that we're accustomed to, scrambled eggs and toast and marmalade and all that stuff. But they'll always have there some local dishes for you to try, which I highly recommend giving a chance, even if it's the kind of flavors that you might not be accustomed to enjoying at breakfast time. In any event, when we get to Okpok Top, we'll find that it's not just a shop or a museum. This is actually a social enterprise that's been supporting and evolving the art of textiles among women in Laos since the latter part of the 1990s. The word actually means east means west, and we'll see firsthand how these traditional crafts and the ways to make them have been preserved and adapted for us, for the modern world. This is a hands-on opportunity. You might get a chance to try your hand at some weaving or dyeing. And I'll tell you, it'll give you a totally new appreciation for the skill and the patience that is required to make these textiles. You'll never look at a scarf the same way again. From there, we'll head on to the Traditional Arts and Ethnology Center. This place is doing incredible work to preserve and protect the cultures of Laos' diverse ethnic groups. It's a great opportunity to learn about the different peoples that make up the country, because as you can imagine, there are a myriad of different ethnic groups. I mentioned earlier that Luang Prabang has a strong French colonial influence, as does all of Laos. You'll see it in the architecture, in the cafes, which serve the most delicious croissants, and next to it, sticky rice. But what's remarkable is that Luang Prabang has evolved and managed to blend all these influences with its with such a unique Lao identity. Organizations like the ones that we'll get a chance to visit today may play a very important role in maintaining the balance. We'll cap off our day with sunset caught from along the riverfront at Luang Prabang. And when I say that this is a magical place, when you experience it at twilight, it's like no other. It's one of those moments that will stay with you long after our trip is over. Okay, so now this morning we're going to get you up bright and early, and I mean before sunrise, but for one of the most iconic experiences you could have in Laos. We'll head into the center of town, and it's just as the sun is coming up over the horizon, we'll see a long line of saffron-robed monks coming down the street for the daily ritual known as alms to the monks. And I've included this little segment here that I dug up from my first visit to Laos many, many years ago. The whole experience is absolutely serene and beautiful. You'll see people lining the streets, much like you see me here in the picture, making small donation of food to the monks as they go by. Monks, as you know, divulge themselves of all of their possessions, and they live off the bounty, off the generosity of people in the community. And so this is what this daily ritual is all about, and this will be a very memorable part of our experience in Luang Prabang. We'll have sailed north at this point, and the river makes a big bend as it then heads toward the west. And we're going to take another deep dive into Lao culture, both the spiritual and, let's say, the more spirited aspects of it. We'll start off the day by taking a little local boat to the village of Ban Chang Hai. Now, this village is famous for two things: beautiful handicrafts. We'll find those in many parts of Laos, and more importantly, potent rice whiskey. Yes, you've heard that right. We're going to stop at a whiskey village. And as we walk through the narrow streets, you'll see workshops where skilled artisans are creating everything from intricate textiles to beautiful and delicately designed pottery. But the star of the show here is the so-called Lao Lao, or rice whiskey. You'll have a chance to see how it's made, and if you're feeling brave, you can even taste a few different varieties. Now, you got to remember, this is one to sip and not gulp, because it definitely packs a punch. After we've had our fill of village life and maybe a little Lao Lao, we'll be feeling good. We'll hop back on our boat and head to the Pak O Caves. Let me paint a picture of what these look like. You can imagine limestone cliffs. Will be in a very hilly part of Laos at this point, rising, and the cliffs rise dramatically up from the Mekong. Nestled within these cliffs are caves with thousands upon thousands of Buddha statues. It is a sight that will absolutely take your breath away. These caves have been a place of worship for well over 1,000 years. And as we look around, we'll find Buddhas of all sizes and shapes. Some are tiny, like as small as your finger, and others are life-sized or even larger. It's a lifetime of Buddhist art, or many lifetimes of Buddhist art, all in one stunning location inside this cave. They aren't lit artificially, so we'll probably recommend to bring some flashlights, or even I remember using the flashlight on my phone to get around and to find all those little statues that are tucked away in the corners. We'll end up back on the boat in the evening where we can relax on deck with a drink. Maybe you'll have actually bought some of that Lao Lao in the village in the morning, and we'll watch the sunset over the Mekong once again. A perfect way to cap off a day of spirituality, as they say. On the 10th day of our trip, as we continue to sail westward along the Mekong, we're going to take in, yes, indeed, more villages, but we'll also have a chance for a special barbecue in the evening. Now, today's experience will be a real blend of cultural immersion and just plain relaxation. We're going to start off with a visit to Banton village. Now, you're probably thinking, have we seen enough villages? But I can tell you that each of these has its own unique character and charm. And because we're on a part of the Mekong that is not overwhelmed by tourist boats, it's not like there are hundreds or even dozens. There are only a few of these vessels that can go this far with visitors from afar up the Mekong River. So in these communities, we're going to see women, again, weaving intricate textiles, maybe different patterns relevant to the particular ethnic group that they're in, men crafting tools using techniques and practices that have been passed down over generations. It's really a chance to get a genuine glimpse into rural Lao life. We'll have time after our villages in the morning to head back for some quality relaxation time as we float down the river. Again, this is what part of river cruising in this part of the world is all about. Sitting back on a deck chair, maybe grabbing a book that you brought with you or a Kindle, as it were, and reflecting on everything that we've seen so far, and maybe even reading up a little bit in one of the books in the onboard library about Lao culture and how this part of the world has evolved. But the evening's not over. By the time, or the day is not over, I should say, by the time we get to the evening, we'll have a treat. We'll have a barbecue on the riverside. So you'll have the flavor of the smell of grilled meats and vegetables wafting through the air, and clinking glasses as we're toasting each other, and having this beautiful, mighty Mekong as a backdrop. Maybe we'll even get in a dance or two. And to cap off the night, we'll take part in a beautiful local tradition, which is the releasing these paper lanterns into the sky. It's a wonderful moment, watching these lit up, glowing lanterns float off into the sky. It's absolutely amazing, and will again be a memory that lives with you for a long time. Today, we're going to have a day which is always very special for me, and that is a visit with an elephant, and we're going to do so in a very responsible way. We can all remember back in the day, in fact, it's not even that long ago, where tourism involving elephants had rides or even shows. They even actually have some of those still going on in places like Thailand. But we've, of course, learned a lot that these beautiful and magnificent creatures over the years have been harmed by these kind of practices. And this is why places like Pak Beng are so important. This is a sanctuary, one of thankfully more and more that have emerged on the landscape of Laos and Thailand over the years. It's a place where elephants who've been mistreated, either through tourism or even through their life as work animals, where they can live out their lives in peace and comfort. So we're not going to be riding elephants, but we're going to be watching them, and perhaps giving them some specially prepared food that exactly suits their diet. And so what makes this place really special is that they also work with the mahouts. These are the elephant herders, if you will. These folks are given alternative employment so that they can continue to work with the animals, but in a way that's better for them and better for the elephants themselves. After our encounter with the elephants, we'll head to the nearby village of Ban Pat Xit. This village is again different from the other ones that we've seen along the way. It's got beautiful backdrop of green hills. Many of the houses still have thatched bamboo roofs, and it's like stepping back in time. So as usual, we're not going to be like staring at the villagers like they're in a museum. Of course, this is their home. This is their everyday life, but we will approach them with genuine curiosity, knowing that they'll be as curious about us as we are about them. On this day, we'll be crossing the border officially from Laos into Thailand, even as we sail down the river with Laos on the right and Thailand on the left. What makes the crossing here at the Thai-Laos Friendship Bridge is kind of a neat fact, which is, of course, that we'll see when we arrive in Laos that they drive on the right side of the road, much like we do at home. But of course, in Thailand, they drive on the left. So when we cross over the bridge, you have to keep your eyes peeled for the spot where everybody has to go from right to left. Or, of course, if you're going from Thailand to Laos, from left to right. So it's this kind of a choreographed dance of cars and trucks, and usually it all happens without too much ado. Once we are on the Thai side, we'll go through the official immigration process. It'll be well orchestrated and looked after by our team, and then we'll head back to the boat for one last evening on board. We're going to be celebrating our arrival into Thailand with a little dance class in the evening. And of course, if you're like me with two left feet, you might be a little daunted by it, but maybe there'll be some of that Lao Lao left from a couple of days prior, or otherwise lots of other cocktails on the boat to get everybody up and having some fun for our first night officially in Thailand. On this day, it's our 13th day, and the only unlucky thing about it is that we'll have to disembark and say goodbye to our vessel. But although we'll have left behind 10 glorious days floating down the river, we've got lots of adventures still in store. And we're going to start off with something specifically for coffee lovers, because we're going to be in the province of Chiang Rai, which is famous for, well, many things, but the coffee plantations is one. And specifically, we're going to go to a cafe that serves doi tung coffee. Now, there's lots of different coffee varieties in Thailand, but this is one with a particular story because you see, the Thai royal family decided to do something about the rampant opium trade. And you might remember, just for a quick snippet of Thai royal history, the current king has been on the throne only for a few years, and his predecessor, King Bhumibol, was famous for being one of the most benevolent monarchs in all of Asia, if not the whole world. And it was part of his family that made massive strides in bringing Thailand from being a very, very backwards country, particularly up here in the north in the agricultural part, into the sort of more modern economy that it is today. They set up Doi Tung, which helped these former opium farmers transition to growing coffee. And it's not just any old coffee. This is maybe some of the best coffee you'll ever taste. It's smooth, it's rich, and of course, knowing this story makes it taste even better. So we'll also be heading back to Chiang Kong, one of the villages that's in this district, and it'll be the first chance to get a real taste of Thailand, the sights, the sounds, the smells, and of course we'll dive into one of our first true Thai meals. So get ready for that for those who are fans of Thai cuisine. Having spent our first night on land after 10 days, of course, on the boat, we're going to be heading back up to a very special district known as the Golden Triangle. This area, known as the Gold Triangle, sits at the corner of three countries. This is where Myanmar, otherwise known as Burma, Laos, and Thailand all come together. And it may conjure up images of beautiful, lush jungle, the Mekong River snaking through, scenic hillsides, and, of course, delicious coffee. But barely a generation ago, it meant something quite different, because this area was actually the heroin capital of the world. But thanks to efforts of the Thai government and the royal family, with projects like Doi Tung as an example, many of the workers that were involved in the drug trade before were able to convert into other more logical practices, of course, like agricultural farming and coffee. Nowadays, it used to be possible to cross the border and take a step into Myanmar, but with all of the political troubles that are happening in that country nowadays, that's not possible. But one thing that we will do is visit a unique exhibit, which is the Hall of Opium Museum, which is dedicated to the history of the drug trade and its ultimate solution. So, in more ways than one, it's quite a sobering experience. Leaving the Golden Triangle and the Mekong River behind, we're going to switch gears entirely and make a drive south, about an hour and a half, to the city of Chiang Rai. And our first stop is going to be one of the most unique places that you've ever laid eyes on, the White Temple, which you see here in the picture. Get ready to have your minds blown, because this place is part traditional Thai architecture, part modern art installation, and it is absolutely 100% Instagram worthy. I won't spoil all the surprises, but let's just say you might spot a few unexpected pop culture references among all the Buddhist imagery. But after that, we're going to go ahead and visit the Blue Temple and the Black House. The Blue Temple is just like the White Temple's cooler, edgier cousin. And the Black House, well, let's say it's less of a temple and more of a collection of, let's say, unconventional art. It's going to be a great way to start off our short 2-night visit in Chiang Rai City. We've got a full day out to explore some nature and some more culture in Chiang Rai, but the highlight of it all might very well be in the evening. The first part of the day will take us a little bit out of town to another spectacular waterfall called Khun Korn. Now, I've seen a lot of waterfalls, and we will have already seen one back in Laos at Quang Si, but this one is quite special. Picture a 70-meter drop of cascading water surrounded by lush jungle. It's the kind of sight that just makes you want to stop and take it all in. After that, we'll head back into town, heading to the Mei Fua Luang Garden. And this place is a testament to the ongoing work of the Doi Tong project that I talked about before, the project of the royal family. And it's not just a pretty garden, although it really is incredibly beautiful, but it also provides employment and purpose for people who might otherwise fall into less savory occupations. Again, the work of the royal family around this Doi Tong and so many other initiatives they did was really, really instrumental in getting a lot of Thai people sort of back on a positive track. We'll cap off the whole day by visiting the night bazaar in Chiang Rai. And if you've never experienced a Thai or any Asian night market before, well, I can just say you're in for a treat. The sights, the sounds, the smells, uh, the people jostling around. It's a full on sensory experience. I love a good night market anywhere, and you'll get to sample all. And in fact, we encourage you to sample. Part of Thailand is street food, and you've probably heard that before. Maybe you visited Bangkok or other parts of Thailand before, but the street food experience is really, really such an important part of their culture. And we'll get this firsthand and get to test the boundaries, if you will, of our Western palates. We'll devote the majority of this day to travel as we depart from Chiang Rai and head southwest about 4.5 to 5 hours, headed for a city of a very similar name, Chiang Mai. Now, although the journey is long, it is really quite a picturesque part of the country. We're talking about mist-shrouded mountains. Of course, that all depends what the weather is like. There's vibrant green rice paddies, and we might even spot a few water buffalo that are lounging around in the fields. In fact, some farmers in this part of Thailand still actually use the buffalo as work animals. Depending on how everyone feels, we might stop at one of the amazing hot springs along the way, and they are truly hot. But we'll make that call actually on our journey. But when we arrive, we're going to arrive in this wonderful city, which is actually literally translated as the new city, which is kind of funny because it was founded in 1296, which is, let's face it, about 200 years before the discovery of America by Columbus. But when you're in a region with cities that date back literally thousands of years, the 13th century is, let's face it, practically yesterday and quite new. When we arrive, we'll have the evening to ourselves. And the best way to get a feel for Chiang Mai, if you've never been to the city before, is simply to stroll around the old city. The old city of Chiang Mai is surrounded by a moat. You can see it pictured here. It's a perfect square, roughly a mile by a mile by a mile by a mile. So you can't really get too far lost. But what you can find within the borders of the old city is truly worthy a lengthy stroll around in your first evening. We're going to spend our last full day on this trip together exploring the old city of Chiang Mai. Now, if you visited this city before or not, it is absolutely the one that is worthy of a second look or a third or a fourth or a fifth. I've been fortunate to visit Chiang Mai countless times and look forward to every return visit. Now, you've maybe been to a lot of old cities. I certainly have. There's something particularly special, though, that sets Chiang Mai apart. It might be the way that the ancient temples sit side by side with hip cafes and massage parlors, or maybe it's the fact that you can just suddenly turn a corner and practically fall into that moat surrounded by the ancient city walls. Among a few of the highlights, we're going to visit Wat Chiang Man, which is the oldest temple in the city, and it's home to some pretty incredible Buddha images, including one made of crystal that is apparently upwards of 1,800 years old. I can only imagine if that little statue could talk, the stories it would tell. We'll leave you on your own to your own devices for our lunch today, but again, this is a place to be adventurous. There are so many different options. Chiang Mai is famous for Lana cuisine, which is distinct from what you might otherwise consider to be Thai food. It's a bit sour, it's a bit spicy, it's totally delicious. But of course, the dish that you have to try in Chiang Mai is called khao soi. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite dishes anywhere in the world. It's a curry noodle soup that'll absolutely knock your socks off. But As with anything, all good things must come to an end. We'll spend our last evening together enjoying a farewell dinner at one of my favorite spots in Chiang Mai. And although it'll be bittersweet, we'll have some memories, some friendships, and some great pictures from beautiful countries that we visited over the last 2 weeks. Day 18 marks the last official day of the trip. We'll have one final breakfast together, and then it'll be off to the airport in our private transfers for our onward flight or perhaps the journey back home. But I leave you with one last thought, particularly after a trip like this, which is that travel isn't just about the places that we see or the things that we do. It's about how these experiences change us or change our perspective. Maybe we've made a lifelong friend or discovered a passion for sticky rice that we didn't know we have. Whatever it is, you will take away something from this journey, like many of our journeys, but this one in particular that takes us through such a unique and fascinating part of the world. As they say in Thailand, Mai Pen Rai, no worries. No matter what, you'll have had a great adventure and hopefully some newfound friends to share all those memories with. To get more details on our upcoming trips to the Upper Mekong with Laos and Thailand, consult our website for the next available departures. There you can also download our detailed trip itinerary. This is a lengthy digital brochure which has all of the information about what's happening day by day, just as I've gone through now. And we have, in addition to that, what we refer to as a trip-specific reference guide. This is kind of like our FAQ, and there you'll find a lot of answers to the logistical questions that you will no doubt have before deciding whether to participate with us in a trip like this. And of course, if you have any questions beyond that, or if you just want to have a conversation to find out if this trip is really for you, then by all means, drop us a note by email or giving us a call. You can find the information here on the screen, or of course on our website or any of our trip itinerary documents. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for tuning into our webinar about the Upper Mekong, Laos, and Thailand today. If you enjoyed it, by all means, leave a comment or a like. And if you like hearing these webinars and want to be one of the first to hear them when new trips come out, then you can subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on subscribe below. Thanks again, and I hope you'll consider joining us on this amazing trip on the Upper Mekong River.